right, well, let's get going. Uh, we've made it to mid-December, and I know many of you are heading to the finish line here. Hopefully you get a little time off. So we do want to welcome you to our this is our fourth and final installment of the USFA procurement mini-series that we've been focusing around USDA Foods procurement. And our last presenter is LA and Florence Simpson from LA. And so we're excited that she's joined us. She wasn't on that original panel that this kind of all started with, but we know that LA has a unique purchasing situation. And so really felt that it would add value to this conversation. And so Florence, we do appreciate you taking the time to be our presenter. And so we'll get going on her slides. I'll share this. And then if you just mute your computer, if you have a question, you can type that in the chat. And then also at the end of the presentation, we'll have some time. And just a reminder, at the end of this, I will get all of the recordings into one spot. And so if you've missed a session or somebody else on your team needs to hear it, we will have a link for that. So with that, Florence, you can take it away. I'll get the screen up here.
Thank you, Jeremy.
All right.
So I'm going to present on behalf of LA Unified. I'm only one of the team members who works on this stuff. And it's been over a series of probably a good 10 years where we've really evolved our procurement. So Jeremy, if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide.
Yep.
The first thing I'm going to talk about is our evolution of our procurement process. And the last piece that I'm going to talk about today is going to be about these new weekend meal packages that we've put together and figured out how to do with partners and commodities. So I like to call it, before we were under what we call death by IFBs, which is just the insurmountable amount of work that it takes to put together a line item bid for products and stuff. So prior to 2015, we were doing everything with IFBs. Our entire team of, I think at that time, 9 nutrition specialists worked on the bids. If items weren't awarded, of course, it was back to the drawing board. And we have a warehouse of our own. So we pretty much procure everything other than direct delivery of milk, bread, and produce. So all the other items go into our warehouses, and our buyers are the ones that are responsible for buying and keeping that warehouse stocked. So it was taking up the buyer's entire time just trying to manage all these individual line items on an IFB. So at that point in 2015, we were only creating menus once a year. Basically the same kind of annual process every single year. Go ahead and create the menu, come up with the specs, send the bids out. And during that time, we would basically roll out the menu right before school started. Once school started, there was very little change. Even though we live in California and we have access to different produce and everything throughout the school year, there was very little change or variety or innovation. At that time too, we didn't have any computers. So everything was done with paper and pencil, really dark ages of communication. We used to use telephone trees to tell our managers different things, or snail mail to send school meal claims back and forth to our central office. Next slide. Thanks, Jeremy. So when we had gone through several directors within a 5-year span, and when Dennis Barrett came on, there was a huge drive to improve the menu. And because of that drive to change the menu, we ended up having to go continually do IFBs. And in 1 year, I think it was we had over 30 different IFBs that we had to keep going to the board back and forth with, sometimes multiples per month, because we wanted to add things on to the contract in order to quickly change the menus around. Because of the board calendar and having to get on the calendar 3 months ahead of time, it was really causing delays in what we wanted to do. So that was the catalyst to move towards this RFP proposal. So what we did at that point was we divided what we considered into categories. So beef, potatoes, cheese, items. And we came up with the calendars to slowly change these IFBs to the RFP process. At that time, we went ahead and we got approval by the USDA and also by the California Department of Ed to drive towards this RFP process. What we were really looking to do was have these categorical contracts where we would then be able to work with these groups to get items added on as we went throughout the school year. So it allowed us really to have our menu team, instead of focusing on individual line item bids and specs and drilling all that down, to really focus on the menu and go out and get what we wanted and find what we wanted. At the same time, we were able to go out, procure computers, bring our CMS system online so that we could integrate back of the house menus, recipes, and training, and our website with daily updates and trainings, so that it all kind of worked together to help really force some rapid change. The one downside about this, though, is that when we first went out for the RFPs, especially because it was a new process, it took a lot for the vendors to understand what it was and to be able to do proposals on it. We ended up with really having single providers for each category. And that really didn't give us the leverage or that we needed to drive price down or to force better performance from certain vendors. Okay, next slide, Jeremy. So for this evolution of the RFP process, in the beginning, again, we went fairly quickly. So in December, we went out for cheese and our paper goods of 2015. In January, we switched over turkey, potatoes, and chicken. And then in July, we went to direct delivery contracts with our bread, produce, and dairy company. It was a large effort, took a lot. We had some bumps along the way, but it eventually ended up with, again, categories where we could go out and procure whatever we would like and add it to our menu fairly quickly. Again, these first bids really favored single companies. In the next cycle round, though, we moved to what we called multiple awards. So, for example, in chicken now, we have multiple providers within that chicken category. We then added the NAE chicken and the vegan. The one thing that we had problems with, and I'll just be very open and honest, is we had a situation where there seemed to be misuse with the categorical bid and just awarding things without really comparing prices and doing different things. So we got pushback from our own procurement department. They forced us to go back to an IFB for paper supplies. We pleaded last year to go back to the RFP process, because every time we needed a new container or a new item to hold one of the menu products that we were quickly changing in the menu, we couldn't get the paper goods to put it in. So if we wanted a new item that we were going to put because our categorical turkey provider came up with a new entree for us, but we didn't have the container, we had to go out for the IFB for the container. So it wasn't matching with what we were doing. So we basically showed them the California decision and the law that said that we were allowed to do this. And then they did a quick price comparison to see the IFB prices versus the RFP prices, and they found no benefit in switching back to the IFB, which was their initial reason for forcing us. They said you could get better prices in an IFB because you're getting more competitors and you're getting different people to bid on it. They found that there wasn't that in the RFP. And I think a lot of that is because these companies now have a larger profile of what we do, so it helps drive down their price and their purchasing as well. So we returned to an RFP for our paper goods and goods supplies back in 2019. So now we are completely all with RFPs again. Again, we're extended a lot of our contracts 1 year because of COVID-19. We're going to have a lot that we have to do in the next 12 to 18 months. And we are really going to try and evolutionize this again so that we get multiple partners per contract. What that does is say, I want a chicken item. I want a new chicken item. Maybe I want a chicken wing, non-breaded, but with flavor. me something that you have that will fit what we're looking for and give us your price proposal. Then off of those two partners, I can decide which product I want is better. If I only have a single provider, it doesn't allow me to do that. At least two in a category really gives us competition within the RFP as well. Next slide, Jeremy. Thank you. So this is our our commodity schedule this past year. For us, a lot is we base it upon pass-through value. We go for a lot of center plate items. We get very few brown box items. For us, one of the biggest decisions is it something that we can produce in our central kitchen or package in our central kitchen that's going to give us a better cost savings than an outside vendor packaging a commodity item for us. So we weigh that in as well as commercial versus commodity prices and pass-through values. The other thing for us specifically is we do breakfast in the classroom, which is all individually wrapped. And our supper program last year was really growing. So we had the majority of those items individually wrapped too, because we just didn't have the labor to stay late and make those individual items. So even on that, a lot we're comparing prep versus individually wrapped and commodity versus commercial. Sometimes we do go and pay extra money or put more commodity allotment towards things that we are going to drive participation, things like chicken wings or items like that. The last thing that we kind of do in commodities a little bit is we kind of hedge our bets. So if we think there's going to be bonus commodity items of certain things, we won't put as much money in that. We'll try and hope to pick it up as either a bonus USDA item. Last year, we picked up an extra $5 million doing that. Our lead nutritionist, Homa, is really connected at the hip with the state. So anytime they've got extra bonuses or things that they need to go ahead and move, they'll shoot her an email or they'll give us a call. And we pick up a lot of product that way as well. I think this year, even with COVID and our reduced purchases, we've picked up at least, I think, an additional 2 million so far this year as well. Next slide, Jeremy. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is something that I was talking to Jeremy and Katie a little bit about, and they said, "Hey, why don't you talk about this in the procurement section?" So one of the things that we always have a challenge with is items that are commodity, but aren't in the form that we want it as. For example, Jennie-O and Tyson. Everything that you get from them, you still have to prepare and package, right? They don't do any individually wrapped items. So if we can't prepare it in our kitchens or our central kitchen Newman Center, then it makes it hard for us to be able to use. Several years ago, we had a turkey breast that was a little bit larger slice that we were actually using with mashed potatoes and gravy as like a roasted turkey. But there was no way that we could prep it all in our schools, and our Newman Nutrition Center wasn't able at that time to produce it for the schools that don't have their own kitchens. So we would take the turkey logs, send them to another provider who would then slice them, go ahead and package them with the mashed potatoes and send them to us. But it got to be this really big issue of tracking the commodity itself and the yield and bringing that back to us. So we stopped that process. We knew we wanted to start doing weekend with items. So I'm going to talk about the weekend kits as one of our innovations for COVID. So I think just like everybody else, COVID-19 has pushed purchasing in the way. One of the things that we've done from the beginning, we're partners on the line, and especially with the produce, we started looking at retail packs and the processors. So the processors actually started producing salad kits and stir fry kits for us that were in family size packs. And where there were things that they already had, they could go ahead and give us retail packs that would fit in the program as well. So we started using retail packs for some carrots, celery, grapes, convenience bananas, as they call them. They're already individually pulled apart. The other part that really happened was we had stuff that we had in our warehouse and we were stuck with because we weren't preparing in the kitchen. So we had, truckloads of corn coming in. We had tons of potatoes. We had entree items that were not wrapped. We worked with our cattle partners, so they would take that out of the warehouse, take it to their facility, wrap it, and send it back. Some were combined into entrees. Others were just individually packaged and came back that way. So I think as we move forward, there's practices that we've learned in COVID that are going to help us continue as we move into hybrid model. And then hopefully eventually back to school at one point where people can actually see the food that they're going to get and actually eat the way that we were prior to COVID. Next slide, Jeremy. So in that picture before was the weekend meals. And what was on that table was the day before Thanksgiving, we gave out 5 days worth of meals. So that's breakfast, lunch, and supper for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we were able to do that because we've developed these kits with Buena Vista. So our challenge was how to add weekend meals. We had no capacity to produce them ourselves. The sites get a daily delivery that morning of what they're handing out. And we wanted to utilize commodities. One, to drive the cost down because Buena Vista, they started making some kits that they were selling to districts that had basically one of their breakfast items and juice and fruit and stuff. Kit that's going to be 2 days. We want that. And this way you can make your margin off of your products that are in the kit and a little bit on packaging, but overall it drives the cost of the kit down and helps us keep utilizing commodities. So they came back, and after several reiterations of the kit, we were able to go ahead and come up with a kit that not only offered us breakfast, lunch, and supper for 2 days, but met our price constraint and included, hold on just a second. Sorry, I totally apologize. Complete Zoom minute. Some Domino's pizza guys here and we didn't order pizza, so. So the way that this works is, if you can go ahead and flip to the next slide, Jeremy. Okay. So I'm just gonna walk you through the process of how we do this. The reason why we've never approached this before is the accounting process was a nightmare of having multiple vendors with commodity items and tracking those commodity items. What we've been able to do is utilize our SAP program that we have in our warehouse to help facilitate this. So the way that it works is basically we project the number of kits that we're going to need for these weekend meals. Buena Vista sends us a list of the POs that they need for the commodity ingredients in it. Off of that, in our SAP, we have what we call a BOM, a bill of materials. And it's basically a recipe in SAP that says kit 1 contains these ingredients. Off of that, we can issue POs to the third parties. So we'll go in and issue POs to the third parties. The third parties then produce the product and ship it directly to Buena Vista. Never enters our warehouse, just goes directly to them. They go ahead and receive the products. They send us copies of the bill of landings. We go ahead and enter that we've received them so that we can pay the third party vendor. And then we go ahead and issue a PO for the kit itself. When that kit comes back into our warehouse, it's reconciled in this bill of materials within SAP, so that when we issue these kits to the schools themselves, they're charged the kit price plus the commodity price, and then it all balances out. So if you flip to the next slide, Jeremy, I'll kind of walk through an example of this. The only other accounting process in this is once a quarter now, we have to actually go to Buena Vista to take a physical inventory of what they have on hand in order to match the total amounts, because obviously they're going to have items that are in production. Sauce or applesauce cup off of the example. So we use about 100,000 kits on an average Friday right now. So say it's going to be kit 1, we're projecting orders for kit 1. So Buena Vista sends us each. So we're just going to say they're just sauce. So in our SAP system, it has a bill of material that lists all the ingredients, and it actually lists these grilled cheese and the applesauce. That's where we're going to issue the POs against. So the POs go out to the third parties and to Gold Star and Integrated. They go ahead then accept the POs and make the product and ship that product directly to Buena Vista. So now Buena Vista's taken the grilled cheese and the applesauce into their inventory. They're signing off on the bill of landing, sending that to us. So then we're going ahead and paying Integrated and Gold Star for the grilled cheese and the applesauce, and they can get paid. So now Buena Vista's got the ingredients that they need. They put those ingredients in the kit along with the things that they're building in it, maybe coffee cake or calzones. And then once we've issued the POs, they're delivering those to us. So when we receive those on our dock in our warehouse, it actually reconciles the BOM. And when we ship those out to the school sites, the schools get charged both the price from Buena Vista, but also the price of the commodity items that are in that kit. Go ahead with the next slide, Jeremy. I hope this is all making sense. This is the first time that I'm kind of explaining this process in general too. We've been working on all the different pieces for a couple weeks now. So in this breakdown, on your right side, you'll see the items from that are in the kit that Buena Vista puts in. On the left side, you'll see the commodity items. So in meal kit 1, commodity items, we've got an empanada in there, a grilled cheese sandwich, applesauce cup, calzones, a snack burrito, salsa, and more applesauce. So that total of those commodity items is 308. On the other side, Buena Vista, they make the apple cinnamon muffin. They make our coffee cake. They're putting in a fruit juice and a box and a tropical trio and 2 slushes. So their total on that kit is $7.80. So when you add it up and you divide it by 6, it ends up, it's pretty much $1.79 is the average cost for the kits. We have 4 different ones that we're utilizing right now. We're working on 2 more, adding in, I think, items like pizza and things like that, because we need to draw down on our commodity cheese. So we're building kits now that are going to help focus and highlight on the commodity items that we need to use up from our other vendors and suppliers as well. And that's it. So hopefully, I hope that made sense and offers a little bit of insight on kind of what we're trying to balance and manage at LA Unified.
Florence, I am blown away. Thank you for that presentation and for the amazing work of Manish, yourself, and your team. I know we have at least one question here. One says, I'm curious which items you find savings for producing through your central kitchen in-house.
Yeah, so for the central kitchen, we have about 200 sites that are off of that central kitchen. The majority of them are all elementary. For us, the majority of what we're doing there is taking items like Tyson items that the sites can't do and sticking it with a side. So it might be, a lot of it is driven by the center of the plate commodity item, which is really the chicken and the turkey. Things like burgers and stuff like that, we get those pre-wrapped because it's a little bit cheaper and it's very mainstream. But especially in the Newman Center, we're trying to focus on an entree item that we can pair together, a main commodity item with a side dish. And for us, it's really commodity chicken, commodity potatoes, put them together in whatever form, and it works really well and helps drive the cost down. I hope that helps answer it.
Yeah. By the way, good job explaining. I think the visuals were helpful to see how it is a complicated accounting process. So thank you for visually showing that to us as well. And so I imagine that these partnerships have just been so helpful along the supply chain, because I know as schools are hurting with their, having enough meal sales, also our manufacturers and other vendors were hurting for business too. So have you gotten any feedback from the other folks involved in this about the relationship that's developed around these products?
Yeah, I think there's, for just this product and then also in general, at one point during the summer, we were using the majority of everything pre-wrapped, pre-prepared. When our staff came back though, we had staff that we could use to put products together. And at that point, we had a lot of vendors saying, hey, I have extra of this unwrapped pizza. I have extra of these pork chops that no one wants. So at that time, we were picking up a lot of items to package ourselves, because there was a surplus on the market since everybody was going to individually wrapped. Last week, unfortunately, COVID cases are out of control right now. So we had to go ahead and close our production sites. Only our pods are back open. So now we're moving towards how do we actually produce these things in our pods. But I think the biggest thing that's been really helpful for us is talking direct with our suppliers and our vendors. Even so, we have Gold Star as kind of a distributor in a certain instance, because they have the majority of our some of our categories. But even going to actual suppliers and saying, hey, Schwann's, what is it that you guys have extra of? What is it that you have pinch points? How can we help you? Those conversations have been very helpful in understanding items that they need to move that we might be able to help them with, but also telling them where we think we're going to be 3 months from now and 6 months from now. Because if you don't have those conversations now about what your hybrid mode is going to look like and what you're going to need, then they're going to be caught off guard when that happens too. So I think we've picked up a lot of, we picked a lot of bonus commodity, but we've also picked up a lot of product from vendors where they were running out of time as far as best use by dates and expiration dates, just by opening up those conversations.
Excellent. Well, we're just a little bit past time. Are there any other questions though before we wrap up today?
If you have any questions, please shoot me an email. I can't tell you how many hours we spent with accounting. We had to get this approved through different USDA and CDE about having other entities holding commodities that we had already signed off on. But now we're able to put whatever we want in those kits and really utilize products as much as we can.
Excellent. Well, it was great to to hear how you innovated on the fly. Not easy to do in such a large district and in the midst of a pandemic. So I echo some of these comments. Thank you, and thank you for a very informative session. So Florence, we appreciate you wrapping up our session. And again, we will have the recordings of these available soon so that others on your team can review them, or if you want to go back and listen again, you can too. So everyone have a great one. Thank you, Florence. Appreciate it.
Thank you.